So first of all, thank you so much, Yasmin. And of course, I think my big thanks to USAID. We are discussing Cypress and so many developments on contraceptive, introductions. And it has been a great support from USAID for the last almost 10 years on the supply chain side of the contraceptives, actually. So I'll be giving you a perspective of the public sector, that how DMPA has been actually supported through USAID, and even though I still remember the randomized control trial supported through USAID when we started at Khan University. Government of Pakistan actually requested us to bring this to Pakistan, so USAID asked and supported almost, I think, 150,000 units of Cypress coming to Pakistan without registration, actually, for the randomized control trials where Khan and Japaigo and all partners actually used. Before I start on to my technical conclusions that we have from the data, I just want to highlight the fact by the time, for example, Jadal was not in Pakistan. It was not registered. It was not with the DRAP, and we were able to bring first of all 45,000 units, and not many trained providers were trained, and now the Sindh government has actually procuring Jadal itself, actually. And likewise the case with Implanon, for example. So USAID was, I think, demonstrated a great, model of, total commodity support, holding hand of the government, and then taking it forward as a meaningful, product that can be actually scaled up through the entire sector. So I think that is one thing that we need to learn and see how it can be applied to Cypress, Now, if you look at the larger perspective, under USAID support, we are actually reporting PPMR, Pakistan Procurement Monitoring and Monitoring Report, Procurement Monitoring Report, which Green Star and other partners also report. Thanks to Aziz and his team, FPAP and Murray Stokes who regularly report on this, and their numbers are there. And then we also report on the RHI interchange, which is going to be now the global family planning VAN, visibility analytics network, and all these reporting platforms give us enough evidence as to what is the behavior of contraceptive method mix in Pakistan, both in public and private sector, and I think predominantly public sector, which is reporting almost 99% throughout the country. So at this point in time, if you see from this slide, it's about 22% of average stock out, and I'll lead to this as to how this control tower means to DMPA molecule, where DMPA or Cypress have the same kind of molecule, but administration is a little different in terms of promotion, promotion of injection. But when you look at the data, you see it's about 27% of the stock out that we have seen. Lady Health Workers Program has been using, but now we see that almost 74% stock out as an outlier from Punjab, because the Department of Health is not as much active as it should be. But if you look at the larger picture of Pakistan, there's about 27% stock out for DMPA. Now, when you connect it with these figures, there's a very interesting slide that we developed just 2 hours before, myself and my colleague, where we looked at in public sector it's about 4.5 million units of DMPA. If you look at the historic trend between 2016 and 2020, with 2020 with COVID going down, but it's about 4.5 million units which are used every year. And now with this average stock out of about 27%, which means 1.2 million have not been injected as they should have been, and we have a loss of about 300,000 CYPs, which means that these products of this injection worth $1.75 million has not been used as opposed to what conventional consumption Pakistan demonstrate every year. So this I think is an eye-opening slide in terms of how DMPA, from a conventional point of view, where USAID has been supporting total commodity in both public and private sector, as you see, for the last since 2010, and now for the last 4 years, the government of Pakistan is spending almost $16 to $17 million per year to buy their commodities, but, still we find that there's an issue of stock availability in the system. Now, what we are doing about this, and I'll talk at the end, how Sign Press and, DMP is associated with in terms of, pool procurement. There's a lot of movement, not only with the Ministry of Health, but we have engaged also Ministry of Commerce and Trade, where we are trying to bring, facilitation to the private sector to see how some long-term agreements or indigenous production can be promoted in the country, where industry feels, that there's a good, business forecast in the country, which is about, $330 million until 2030. And it's about, $59, million just for, the DMPA molecule. But we're trying to make sure that both Ministry of Health and Ministry of Commerce and Trade actually meets the industry alongside the DRAP, and they identify those, specific partners who are interested in local production and also entering into long-term agreements, including, of course, Vaji, Pfizer, and his team. We have been, he has been part of at least two meetings. So that is one thing. And I'm sure, even if you put all your energies in indigenous production, or even if Pfizer thinks of starting local production, I'm just, out of, wild thinking. That means, a plant importation, installation, operationalization will take almost 3 to 4 years. And that is what, I have been discussing at the Federal Task Force, where the President invited, USAID and us to talk about, as to how, what, long-term, procurement mechanics could be in terms of easiness to the private sector, and also making sure that there's no stock up. So there are many, strategies that we have been unfolding with the government. In the last meeting, last Federal Task Force meeting, all the provincial governments agreed that, there are two important areas that Pakistan needs to pay attention to, and USAID is supporting. One is indigenous production. Number two is strategizing the pool procurement. Now, unlike, a pool procurement that is available for immunization, where, under 18th Amendment, money is, resourced at the federal level, and the federal government actually procure on behalf of the provincial governments, the entire scheme of, vaccines. The family planning money is already available with the provincial government. So this is a difference between the two supply chains. So here what we have proposed is, is basically a centralized tendering. That means, that Pakistan should be able to fix unit prices for all products that, contenders would like to provide in Pakistan after, the tendering and, RFPs that Pakistan advertises. And then those unit prices can be actually availed by all provincial governments. So the pool procurement is basically centralized, tendering and decentralized payment processes. And this has been liked by at least, 3 provinces of Pakistan. And they agreed, that if, we can have a centralized tender, it will help, smaller provinces and with smaller population a lot. For example, Balochistan and KP. But one thing I would like to inform the, colleagues here is the, pool procurement exercise has been done at least for the regional governments. Regional governments mean, Azad Jammu and Kashmir, Islamabad, and Gilgit-Baltistan. So these 3 regional governments actually, had their one centralized tender, and they were able to have a good price for, different contraceptives, at least 4 types, and they did it successfully. Now, what does it mean to DMPA? Now here, I think it is important for us. I don't know. I mean, the numbers that you just shared with in the presentation, they're very small numbers. What we see is that average yearly consumption of DMPA as a molecule, irrespective of the brand name, is about 4.5 million units actually. And even with this, randomized controlled trials, I think, the bigger requirement is that how soon we have a large number of people who are trained rather than the product itself, actually, because we have good examples where products were not registered in Pakistan, and yet Pakistan was able to procure through understanding, for example, Jadal, where Sindh government actually spent about, $2 million buying almost 165,000 units as a discrete procurement activity. So from our perspective, we see, and we do this, logistics modeling from all, public, private sector and commercial sector, combining logistics and, commercial data and also the demographic data. But these numbers are, coming from a meta-analysis of different data sets that Pakistan has. Most importantly, the Logistics Management Information System platform, where the entire country, all 152 districts actually report onto this, says that, it's about 4.5 million units that Pakistan consumes. And that is about, public sector share is about $48 million until 2030. Private sector is about 9.3. You're right in terms of the smaller estimates that you have done just for that, Sina Press, and the commercial sector and the off the shelf is about 2 million. It's about $60 million, dollar business that we have until 2030. And based on this method mix, where what we are trying to do with the government of Pakistan is that if pre-qualification can be done, and we did this, in Punjab, where 4 or 5 good, quality producers were identified, and they supplied, after pre-qualification, their business to Punjab government in a very, I would say, transparent manner with good quality. And at this point in time, we understand that quality may not be a big, kind of concern. And local products and, Pfizer, which is WHO pre-qualified, all combinations are being used, and now Sinopress has been introduced. So that, I think, intra-product distribution to different brands can be seen from the perspective that how we advise the government in terms of what their needs are, and if we can, fix a price. And I spoke with Vaji on this, that what will be a good price that you will offer to the government of Pakistan if you go for a long-term agreement in terms of, maybe, this one tender where, prices can be fixed to local suppliers, which may not be, WHO pre-qualified, and the price that we tag to quality products like, Pfizer, and others actually. So this is I think what has been on the card, and we have also been discussing as to those companies which intend to have a local production, their indigenous plant, for example, as a plan for 3 or 4 years, how they can also enter into long-term agreements where government of Pakistan is interested in developing local indigenous capacity for the big market that we have. As I said, just for one method, it's about 4.5 million units per year. The government is interested that how we can have a self-sufficiency, but that self-sufficiency would not be materialized until we have a combination of partners from commercial industry that are not only interested in having buyback guarantees from Pakistan, for example, for the next 2 or 3 years, until they have their indigenous production units in Pakistan, which can go into again a long-term agreement as a buyback guarantee. And I heard from the Ministry of Commerce that they are ready to provide all kinds of facilitation to the commercial industry in giving lands or giving waivers in terms of importation of technology, WHO, UNFPA, pre-qualified plants from outside, making sure that they will not only be providing a buyback guarantee, but also providing other facilitation of tax levies and those kind of things. So I would say we are discussing it at the larger context with an interministerial kind of flavor, and I think the delicacy of pool procurement lies in terms of those solutions where you have a delicate balance between local producers, which is certainly a priority in terms of Pakistan Procurement Regulatory Authority rules and regulations, where you go for the lowest price. But at the same time, I think partners like us, with USAID support, can actually nurture the environment of a combination of products where the local industry is not also, compromised, but at the same time, quality products also have, a larger kind of, piece of, share in terms of their business in Pakistan. So I would say, I think lastly, what we are trying to work out is, working with the Pakistan procurement regulatory authorities at national and provincial levels. We actually had a discussion with the deputy chairman today, today's meeting, where there was a discussion as to how we can actually, overcome a structural anomaly where centralized tendering is not possible until Pakistan procurement regulatory authorities from all 4 provinces with the national authority have a consensus that yes, the provincial governments can have a centralized tender and a decentralized procurement mechanism. So I think it is a hot discussion. We are working on developing a working paper for Dr. Faisal so that he can actually take it forward with the provincial governments, and we invite all national and provincial procurement regulatory authorities to look at this structural, repair that will allow Pakistan a larger, perspective as to how the local and, multinational industry can be brought into net where there is an equitable business for both industries. So I'll stop here, and I'll be happy to answer any question, but I think we're trying to address the structural as well as and I'm very thankful to USAID where all of this data is coming from LMI's platform and the government of Pakistan has owned it. I'm thankful to social marketing, especially Aziz and his team. They are doing it wonderful, every month. They put up the data onto the system and it comes onto the radar, and we know what does it mean in terms of partners, ability and their, stock situation, and how we can actually advocate commodity security for the private sector organization. So I think, end my talk by saying that I think let's not underestimate yourself. You are the power from the private sector, NGOs, and I think you have that leverage of scaling up, DMPA or Sanapres at a much larger scale. But make sure that you have a good plan of training and increasing the number of providers throughout the country rather than, I would say the RCT. I mean, please don't take me wrong, but I feel strongly that RCT never was done for example, Jadel, but it was accepted, and the government of Pakistan is now buying, post-registration, very easily. I'll stop here, Dr. Yasmin, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.